Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We can be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring Children of the Light. While on stage performing with my musical group at the Star Knowledge Conference, a small child of about 3 started climbing the stairs to get to me. Having witnessed this behavior more than once, I knew she would not be deterred. Fearing she might fall off stage, I took the mic from its stand and continued the song while I walked over to help her. She spent the rest of the set standing next to me, holding my hand and waving at her mortified mother. As long as I can remember, it's always been this way. I can be sitting in a restaurant, and the next thing I know, a toddler has climbed in my lap and starts eating from my plate. Children I pass in the grocery store will virtually dive out of their parents' arms and into mine. I can't tell you how many times a distraught parent has said to me, "I'm so sorry, I don't know what got into her," or him. One day I was at a gathering sitting on a blanket under a tree with my teacher and his wife. Soon several small children climbed into my lap and settled in. "Why do they always do that?" I asked. "You're of their tribe. They recognize your light," my teacher's wife informed me. I've been trying to figure out what she meant ever since. Later on, continuing my spiritual search and starting to move into esoteric circles, I came to better understand. Often I would be approached by someone that was sure they'd met me before, when I was equally sure we'd never encountered one another. I, too, would see a stranger that looked so familiar I could almost remember who they were, though we'd never met. These are unprecedented times. As we move further into the age of Aquarius, huge change is afoot. From the Mayan calendar to the revelations in the Bible, these days have been prophesied by numerous religions and traditions. As the solar system moves into a more intensely charged portion of the galaxy, the light and therefore the ambient frequency is rapidly increasing. These times are volatile and outcome uncertain. There are those of us that chose to come at this particular juncture to make a difference. In order to do so, we came already carrying a larger bandwidth of light. In addition, we have the physical and esoteric capacity to channel more light into the world. It doesn't make us any better than anyone else. It's simply necessary for our particular function this time. These individuals are sometimes referred to as light workers. Everyone has the latent capacity to evolve and embody the increasing light. Whether we do so or not is a personal choice. It's not an easy path, as it involves a fair amount of healing, personal processing, and letting go of old identities. If we choose to engage in the evolutionary process, we're often drawn to others that are aligned with our path. Like drawn to like. Often, there is a recognition of sorts that is impossible to deny. Sometimes we're drawn to activators, individuals that carry the bandwidth of light we need to attune to in order to engage or further our personal process. Light workers are committed to using whatever gifts they carry to help others on the path to enlightenment. All light workers are not healers, but can be found in every walk of life. Some professions reflect what they are, while others do not. It's what they are and what they carry, not what they do, that characterizes them. So how do you know if you're one that came to be a light worker? Some of the characteristics found in light workers are sensitivity as a child, feeling different than most around you, extrasensory perception, knowing things others do not, a burning desire to find truth, to be of service in order to make a difference, driven, unable to settle for status quo, often misjudged by others, a tendency to give more than you receive, often resulting in exploitive relationships. Bummer birthmark, dude. Even though we may have come with the capacity to serve as light workers, we're not obligated to walk the path. If, however, you choose to do so, your soul team awaits you. Our guest this hour, Trixie Phelps, is the CEO and founder of Moxie Breeze, LLC, where she serves as a light worker, spiritual liaison, shamanic practitioner, certified shamanic teacher's assistant, Reiki Master, and a professional palm reader. After this short break, I'll introduce Trixie, and together we'll explore modern-day shamanism, soul balancing, and what it really means to be a light worker. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour, lightworker Trixie Phelps, combines all her natural gifts, talents, and experience by offering her clients liberation with a technique she calls soul balancing. Trixie offers private sessions, group infusions, clearings, house clearings, palm readings, and teaches classes. All of her services can be found on our website, www.soulbalancing.world and www.moxiebreeze.com. Trix, thanks for joining us on Science of Magic.
And thank you for having me, Gwilda. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, always fun to work together. So how did you first discover you were a light worker?
Well, for me, honestly, it wasn't an overnight awakening, as it may be with some of our colleague healers. A light worker for me was discovered through my personal process of growing and opening and awakening, and it came more over time, with the classes and the lessons and awakenings that I have had.
Light worker is a term that's really been used loosely. People throw it around a lot in the esoteric community. Would you mind sharing what it means to you?
Yeah, light worker for me, well, you actually did an excellent job describing that in your introduction. It's very fitting in being service of the light, working for the light is essentially the name light worker, where that comes from. So for me, I've devoted now my calling and my skills and my talents of the energy work that I'm capable of doing to the light. That's where my focus goes.
And what changes did you see happening when you made that choice?
Oh, sometimes those are night and day. Those are, yeah. We tend to all accept the norm of the negative energies and all the programming and beliefs that we have in society and in general. So when I was awakening enough to see the difference in that and then clearing out those interferences to shine my inner light brighter, it definitely makes a world of difference. I could see where my heart has softened, where my connections with people are growing. It just makes a world of difference in so many aspects, both personally and professionally.
Was there a certain amount of personal impact when you made that choice?
Oh, personal impact. Well, yeah, those are huge. We all have some level of trauma, right? So one of those indicators that I have picked up on and learned through some of my training is the emotional reactions that we have. And not just what I see in others, because, that's so easy to do when you're looking at other people and say, look, they got this or they're doing that. And I needed that time to look at myself, and of course that's when those big shifts were happening. Where am I feeling those things, or where am I saying those things, and then working on myself and clearing those out so that I'm not in that state.
So I see you've received certifications and training to channel your gifts. Do you think training is important, and if so, why?
I do, especially for certain people. Maybe not everybody is in the need of having a mentor or a coach or a teacher where others are. And, of course, there's no right or wrong. For me, I had probably fairly minimal patience in learning it on my own. So it was a very large and loud request that I sent off to Creator in connecting me with the teachers that would help propel me in the direction that I knew I was wanting to go. So, yes, for many of us, teachers are hugely beneficial in the growth and awakening process.
Tell me about sending off a call to Creator or an intent to Creator. How do you do that, and what effect do you see it has?
Well, I believe it probably varies depending on a person's beliefs. For me, I am widely open-minded on, many areas. So for the requests, prayers, manifests, however you might want to look at that, is literally just that. I'm connecting with the highest divine being. I'm putting out my request. And, of course, one of the other two key components that I have found is, releasing, just trusting that He and Creator Spirit has now taken it all into their hands. They're going to work with it how they need to see fit. I don't put restrictions on it. And lastly, the biggest piece was being gratitude, having that gratitude towards the request that was just made. It makes huge impacts. And even these days, you're seeing them much quicker. I'm feeling and sensing them happen much, much faster than they used to.
How can you recognize when an answer to your request is coming up to be taken advantage of?
Could you elaborate on that question?
Sure. So you put out a request, and then happenings or teachers or this or that start to appear in your life that are there to fulfill your request. How do you tell when that's happening? How can you tell what's to be taken on and what isn't?
Yeah, this goes into your gut knowing, your intuition, the divine knowing. And for me, it was always something I've had since a kid, is to telling the truth about people. You can always sort of sense, feel, or know something's off. Something wasn't quite right. There's not really a strong connection. Maybe they have a little piece of advice or a little something they're going to share, and that in itself can be very helpful. But to know when that teacher approached, it was definitely more of a core knowing. In the same case as when I originally met with you and started to take classes and courses through your Path Home Shamanic Art School, was phenomenal. There was just that draw. There was a knowing that this is where I belong.
So what all training have you had?
I started, actually it was some guidance from Creator that brought me into looking more into what a shaman was, what it meant and how it worked, or, where is that connection. And I remember putting out the request to know more about it and the teacher to go with it. And we have a local magazine in the area that people in the area also advertise in. And I remember coming across the full-page ad that you guys had displayed, and it was for the 2-year program, and I remember thinking, my first thought, no, I don't want to do 2 years. I don't even know what this is. But I did immediately connect with the school. There were workshops, there were classes, there were ongoing things, so it was easy to connect in and begin my learning experience and growth. So this was my first true connection to expanding and, listening to what my guidance is, where my light was taking me. And it just kept growing from there. I believe while I was learning with the shamanic arts, I had also kind of been drawn over to the Reiki work, which is also very common and very well known by many people. So I was curious to see what that was all about, and I took some courses as well and certified Reiki Master teacher. And I focused on it for a while, but then I felt the draw to go back into, and I never really left the shaman work. I was just putting it kind of to the side a little. And then when I got the calling and the knowing for it, I sort of softened off on the Reiki. I went back into the shaman, and I just continued. And then my draw went to, I think it was some sort of fair or festival where I had met this woman that was doing palm reading. And I remember looking and thinking, I don't need that. I've already got this other stuff. In my mind, like, she's available. The timing was right. She had no one there, and I was waiting, and it was like perfect. I'm like, okay, let's just see what this is. So I sat down, and I was hooked right away. It just spoke to me. It was really right on. She was very intuitive, which is how I am as well, so it spoke very loudly to me. And then at the same time, I continue all the shamanic work that I was also learning and embracing all the different modalities and what that looks like, and then taking it further, to the present day, where I continue to work with another spiritual teacher on many fast-paced and modern and contemporary ways of working with the energy. So it's just an ever-growing process that I, along the way, more or less will just trust those intuitions, because they're the guidance that will lead us where we're going.
So it sounds to me like, rather than dabbling, which it might look like when we're taking a little this and taking a little that and putting it all together to create a form, it sounds to me like you went pretty much to the core of each of the forms. How do you find them dovetailing together?
In the beginning, it was a feeling that they had to be kept separate, because they are each individually their own types of modalities. They each work in their own specific ways. When ultimately everything is energy. And when you're working within one modality, it's not exactly that easy to leave and segregate another modality. Well, again, because everything is energy. So I just found a way over time how to combine all the different modalities that I have trained in and picked up on, and any of the natural intuitive skills I had, and just combine them all into a process I now call soul balancing.
You speak of the fast-changing new energies that present through the thinning veils. Would you expound on that, please?
Yes, I see the veils as layers of frequency, right? So these frequencies, and again, everything is energy. The earth goes through cyclic processes, as most things do, and at one point it was moving very, very slow, and the veils were very heavy, thick, and dense, which made it difficult for most of the common people to connect spiritually to oneness. And it used to be, if you wanted to, you'd have to go to those that did have that connection, like the shamans, the monks, or the wise ones. And now it feels as though, you can sense that the cyclic of the earth is now at a point where everything is moving at a very rapid pace, and the veils are thinning, which are allowing more people to connect to the divine knowing, on their own.
What personal work do you find you have to do in order to stay tuned up or up to date and well connected during these changes?
Oh, that's a good question, for sure. Meditation is really not a thing for me. I don't sit still that well. And there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad in anything that we're doing. And so finding what works for each of us is kind of the key. And for me, I do really well with those connections in that sense with let's say house chores. It's not something that many people like to do, but it's so mundane and it's so easy, and you don't really need to think about it, so your mind goes into more of this calm trance state that allows me to connect to my inner knowing and to the divine energies a lot easier. I also find that I do that with different crafts or activities, like when I wire wrap crystals and make my jewelry. So that's where I tend to work with my personal energy and picking up what I've been sensing or feeling about myself, whatever interferences I've had, whatever, judgments or emotions have come up, and then I make a note of them. I try and clear what I can on my own, and then I also connect with other colleagues if it's something that's too much for me or I'm not seeing it because I'm emotionally connected and those things. So for me, I definitely find my avenue in that way, and I try to do it a good 3 to 5 times a week on average. The more clear that I can be, the more available and present I am for my clients and students.
That's beautiful. It's like you're taking the chop wood, carry water, and it kind of puts us into a meditative state, and then using that to do some soul searching. What a lovely way to go. Trixie, we're going to have to take a little bit of a break here, but we will talk more about how do we stay tuned up in this world where we're being bombarded with things that may or may not meet with what we need to be doing at the moment. We'll return to our discussion after this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Do you want to hear more? Previous broadcasts of innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.scienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. Visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is lightworker and shamanic practitioner Trixie Phelps. Her websites, www.soulbalancing.world and www.moxiebreeze.com. Trixie, we were talking about staying tuned up in order to be present, to be a light worker. How can you tell when you're getting behind that power curve?
For me, it tends to show in my attitude, as well as how I'm feeling, towards myself or towards others. And so it could present in many ways, right? It could be the blockages, resistances. It could be sort of that anger and hum-ho feeling, we just kind of tune in, and I become more acutely aware of my feelings and emotions. And when I say, I think I mentioned earlier that I make a list of things that I pick up on that I know that needs work, well, that list sometimes can be pages long. We're all human, and we all have these experiences from this life or past lives, and so it's a process. And I see things now as an opportunity to where, once you recognize what's happening, it's that opportunity to clear it. It almost makes me think of like a cyclic behavior. Many of the past lives that we've all experienced were for those lessons that we were looking to come in for. But somewhere in that process, it feels as though the cyclic process, it didn't complete. The clearing, the healing, the forgiving, the unconditional love was not part of that cyclic process, where now in this lifetime, in this incarnation, for many of us, our experiences are to learn that part of it, to finish that part. So I keep a note. I just try to be very conscious and aware of those things.
It is a key, consciousness and awareness, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
It's obvious you're being a light worker is reflected in your career, but how else do you see it expressing in your life?
Yes, this is another good question. Being a light worker or a healer, an energy worker of any kind at all, is not something that's necessarily distinguished separate from who you are as a person. Traditionally, of course, in the corporate world and in the society, we work as separate from home. It's not who you are, because you were working probably for somebody else, most likely. Being a light worker, the energy worker, healer, any of those aspects it is who we are. And it's how we treat ourselves, how we present ourselves, it's how we treat others, and it's just basically a way of life. I think, we're all light beings, right? That's what I believe, and we are all creator incarnate. And so once I embraced that in my life, it became clear to me that it's the divine gift to shine my light wherever I go. So I hold my light within, my arm's length around me. This is sort of, you could say, the bubble in a sense. I'm found at one time in the beginning of learning that with our light, we would retract that energy or that knowing or that being a part of us, especially when we were around other people who, we didn't feel comfortable around, or we were at the store, places like that. We would retract our light. And then it became this knowing that I had that was not really a way of working with it. It was I don't know, there was a feeling there that just didn't resonate. So it was being said to me to hold my light constant. So that is when I began doing that. And now it reflects on everything I do, anyone that I interact with, any clients, students, or the little crafts and, jewelry projects, anything at all, as well as my children and husband, pets, family, friends. It just involves everybody. And, of course, that frequency of the light that we hold within is at such a high, vibrant frequency that it resonates to those others around us. And either if they don't like it and it makes them uncomfortable, they'll leave, or if they do, that's how you're connecting with your tribe.
Oh, beautifully stated. Trix, I know that you're a mother and a wife, and what advice do you have for balancing being a light worker with the needs of your family?
Yes, this is another area that has been a big change for me. We've got 3 children, and our oldest is now out of the house. The other 2 are teenagers still in the house. And there's a gap in the age. So the first one, I could tell you that the raising of that child is very traditional in the society aspect, very strict and smothering and overprotecting and a lot of those older, denser, kind of heavier energies that just really restrict that individual from being able to experience their life in the way that they came to do so. And when that awareness came in for me, I now work in a relationship with my children as well as my husband, actually, in honoring where they're at in their path. So allowing a little more freedom, allowing a little more understanding, and definitely allowing them an opportunity to speak what they're feeling around a situation so that they feel more connected or more involved, and they're being heard, and that's huge. So for me, it's a complete night and day difference in how I work with my family now.
So tell us a little bit about how shamanism interfaces with being a light worker for you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, of course, my first teachings was with you through the Path Home Shamanic Art School, which was a huge foundational support for me in the training that's given, the subroutines that were created, the knowledge, the knowing, the trusting your imagination, your intuition, all these aspects that were taught were definite core foundations in establishing the way I work now. So I've customized it a little bit, utilizing those teachings along with all the others and my knowing into the soul balancing technique, but it's definitely always been a very core foundation to the way I work in connecting with spirit even.
Speaking of which, would you mind telling us about your soul balancing and how it works and what it is? And
the term soul balancing has come to me over probably the last couple of years as I wanted to find a term or a phrase or something that would represent what I do. When you're out networking and marketing or, meeting people and they ask you what you do, sometimes that's really difficult in this field of work. And so I kept asking for that guidance and that knowing to find what would work for what I do and how I am of a service. And this balancing aspect, of course, came in first. And then as I would talk to people, and I kept that question sort of at the back of my mind every time I worked with clients, and somewhere along the way it came up again, and then it came up again, soul balancing, and I thought, that's perfect. That does say exactly what it is that I'm doing. So with all the techniques and modalities that I've trained with, that I've combined into this soul balancing aspect is just that. It's balancing your soul. And we're all, on some level, out of balance somewhere along the way for various reasons. What I do with the soul balancing is I'm looking at whatever is interfering with you, wherever you are on your path at that time. So I meet you where you are, and I remove those interferences, as well as bringing back the energies of you that do belong. This creates that balance within.
Beautiful. So what advice do you have for light workers about combining modalities?
For me personally, because of how I have experienced it, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. I mean, the traditional, let's say the Reiki and even the traditional shamanism is very, very powerful and very accurate and very useful. And those are based on, 4,000 years back? I mean, they're very core founded, right? So there's a lot to say to that. And in giving so, nowadays with the veils thinning and the connections that we can so easily have with spirit and creator, my gut's like, well, why not? Why not combine what you need in order to make your path easier or your connection with others clearer, or, that just is that knowing that came forth for me, that there, again, was no way to easily separate the two when everything is already energy.
How do you know which modality or grouping of modalities to use for each of your clients?
Yes, that's a good question, too, because as I had combined them, it would seem as though, they're just all going to be one and the same. And then that's not true either. There's no, not any two clients that are exactly the same, and nor is there trauma. Even if it's the same topic of a trauma or whatever their reaction is around, it's still going to have different threads, different core, roots to why they happened, or the patterns will be different. There's never two the same. So for me, I will, again, meet the client where they are, customizing the energy. So if it looks like they're more connected with the training based off of what I've had, of course. So if they're connected more with Reiki, then I will pull in the symbols and the Reiki Masters, and I will use a method more based on that. If they're more earthbound or shamanically connected, then I'm definitely going to go more into that. And there actually have been several that want to do the journeying to lower world or upper world and doing soul retrieval or finding their power animals, and then I customize it because I'm skilled and trained in those aspects that I can do that for them. And then there are, and will be, always those clients at times where they don't resonate with what you're offering. And this is key. This is key in my mind because it's not about me. It's all about them. It's about their evolution, their liberation, and finding their path. So for me, if I can't fit or feel what they're looking for, then I will recommend them to somebody else because it's about getting them what they need.
We're going to have to take another little break here, but we will be back on the flip side. You're listening to The Science of Magic, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous broadcasts on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. Our website is www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is lightworker and shamanic practitioner Trixie Phelps. Her websites, www.soulbalancing.world and www.moxiebreeze.com. That's MOXIEBREEZE.com. Trixie's really been having a lot of fun here, and I don't want to move forward without talking to you about stones and jewelry and what you're bringing through that modality.
That's a great question as well. Yeah, the stones were one of those tools that I connected with years ago and just started collecting little rocks and crystals. I've always been a rock collector since a child. We just always had that fascination with the odd, the ugly, the unique, and different kinds of rocks. They were the coolest, and then as an adult I got more involved and drawn to the crystals and collecting them, and then it became more of like, well, I want to wear these. I don't always have pockets to carry them. And so then I noticed once somebody had wire wrapped a stone that they were wearing as a necklace, and that just threw me into a whole nother learning experience. So I went and pulled out some tools. I bought some equipment. I started wire wrapping. I'm self-taught, and just expanded from there using the frequency of the stone. So when I do my wire wrapping or working with the stones, I'm always tuning into what the energy of it is. This color wire, that color wire, one wire, two wires, a loop, a crossover, a twist, whatever it is that it feels that is connecting to the stone's energy, and therefore leaving my energy out of it. So I'm always in that neutral state of just listening. And then when I'm finished, of course, I always do a clearing and activation of the stones.
What's the benefits of wearing stones or having them on you if they've been shamanically worked? I'll have to say that's what you're doing there. What's the benefit of that for an individual?
Yeah, I do energy work with them. I am infusing them a little bit, but I'm actually doing it more to their natural state of energy. Well, again, because everything is energy, so that each stone will carry their own frequency of different things they work with in healing or amplifying energy or clearing or blockage or protection, whatever that aspect of the stone is. And then I tune into that, encouraging that strength of it for the person of who it goes to. So there won't be any other interferences that aren't natural for that stone. Does that make sense?
It absolutely do, which brings up my next question is, do you make custom jewelry designed to help a specific person with their evolutionary process?
Yes, and I have had several people request custom wraps. Some of them don't have stones, and we'll go through and find one together, because I do have a few, or we'll go to the store, they'll pick one out, they'll find it, bring it to me. Others will have heirlooms, ones that's been in the family, some crystals and stones. And so then the wrapping becomes more customized for them and wherever they are, in their journey,
So do you go through a clearing process of the stones, whether you've purchased them at a gym show or whether it's an heirloom that somebody has brought to you before you do the wrapping?
Yes, I definitely clear them because I don't want to read into any previous energies that aren't really natural for the stone. So I definitely clear them. I have a process that I use where there's a blessing involved as well as to where it came from, the gratitude of the stone, the earth, anything that's connected with it in that aspect, clearing off anybody that's handled it, that's brought it to me at this point in time, and then working with it from a natural state as well as finishing the design, the wrap, and then infusing it with its natural energy. And then I have like a light chamber that I've created as well where that cleansing happens.
So where can people find your jewelry?
Yeah, I had at one time just been handing them out. That was at the beginning, right, of my, here, this turned out, it was here. And family and friends are like, you should really create a little store for this. And I'm like, I don't know. Finally I did. I created a store on Etsy. So Etsy.com, that's ETSY.com. Moxie Breeze Jewelry is the name of my store. And I've got different pieces that'll go up and down, and, it changes all the time just depending on what I have, on stock and what I've gotten to wrapping and stuff. But, yeah, that's the store I currently use. You can also access that through my website. There's a page in there that connects to the sacred jewelry.
Would that be the Moxie Breeze website?
Yes, it currently is the one that,
Yeah, okay. So do you combine stones, like if you're making a piece, do you combine different stones when you're working for a particular person or for a particular purpose?
Yeah, so there are some pieces I'll make that are beaded. They're the natural stones that have a hole through them, or they've been tumbled or polished. And my preference is working with the raw and natural stones just because the energy seems to be clearer for me when I'm connecting with it. And in the beading process, most definitely, it's easy to combine the different stones that work really well energetically together. Quartz is always a favorite, clear quartz, because it works so well with many, many stones, and it's a very popular and common piece. But custom ones with the raw stones have been made, I think a handful of different times. So, yes, it can definitely be something I do.
And do you find that people start to need different combinations as they evolve, and you make a new piece for them?
That's true, yes. And the stones actually have sort of their own method of finding you as well as leaving. Sometimes we have a stone thinking that our connection is very strong, and then next thing you know, they're gone, or they found their way to another person. And I just honor that it was meant to happen that way, that for whatever reason that person is supposed to have that stone. And so, yes, they come and they go, both based on our interest and as well as, the consciously or unconsciously, basically. The stones will find us or we find them.
Great. So what do you do in your shamanic practice? Are you working when you're doing the stones? Are you weaving in shamanism when you do that?
I do, because I'm connecting a lot with Mother Earth. I will journey a lot to the place in where the stone was recovered, whether it was in the States or like Brazil or wherever the mining was when they were pulled or found. And if I don't know, I just allow that to show and present itself as I am making that gratitude journey to the stone and anybody that was handling it, whatever the process was. So yes, I use the shamanic foundation in working with them very regularly.
Do you offer your healing services long distance?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We can do over the phone. It can be on Skype. I'm open to other connections like GoToMeeting, some of my classes and things like that, or Google Plus things. But yes, the long-distance sessions are easily done. Connecting with the energy, again, whether you're in person or long distance, is not difficult in the way that I work with that. So yes, that's offered.
How can people find your services?
The websites are probably the prime place. I also have a Facebook page. It's Moxie Breeze Soul Balancing on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter and a few of the others like LinkedIn and Instagram. And
your websites are?
MoxieBreeze.com, MoxieBreeze. Moxie is bravery and courage. Breeze is like breath and flow. So for me, that offered balance. It's not too strong and out of whack on that side, but it's not too soft and subtle on the breeze. So for me, it was a balance. It's a daily reminder of balance. Again, that kind of leads into the soul balancing that I have come to develop. So it was a cool experience. And then, of course, the soulbalancing.world.
Perfect. Well, we have a little less than a minute left, hon, and it's been a wonderful working with you. Do you have anything to share with our listeners in parting?
I do. Everyone learns in different ways, whether it's on your own, with friends, family, or with spiritual teachers, and all these wonderful options in assisting you in awakening and understanding of your personal experiences is wonderful experiences. My message to the listeners is to trust your knowing. It's the best teacher you'll ever have.
Trixie, thank you so much for being on The Science of Magic with us and bringing your lovely gifts and your lovely wisdom.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, Gwilda.
Our guest this hour has been lightworker and shamanic practitioner Trixie Phelps. Her website's www.soulbalancing.world and www.moxiebreeze.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge, comforted with love, and always live in the light.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation, searching for the light. One people, one nation, coming from the stars. One people, one nation, to heal this earth of ours. Our gracious mother.